Well, a very warm good afternoon to you, and welcome to the latest installment of Tea and Training. And I'm really excited that we're going to be heading north of the border today for the special. Now, as you know, I like to give you weather updates, and it's turned a little autumnal in Henley. It might have warmed up a little bit, but it started raining and so on. So, but we're hoping for a lovely warm September. So some of you may remember Vikki, because Vikki Bruce, who joined us when we had our fabulous tour of whiskey tasting and so on with the wonderful Charlie Maclean. So welcome again, Vikki. It is lovely to see you. She has asked me to say that her connection is a little bit slow, so bear with us if she cuts out, but she always comes back. So that's the main thing. Right, let me just share the screen with you. And we will get going. Now, one of the reasons that we love partnering with Vikki and Charlie is that they take very much the same approach to looking after your clients as we do. And it's all about bringing alive the destination in a way that suits them, not just an off-the-shelf itinerary. And we don't claim to be experts in everything north of the border, which is why a partnership like this is so perfect, because Vikki and her team certainly are the experts. You may remember, because I'm in awe of this, you may remember that Vikki is descended from Robert the Bruce, which is quite extraordinary. So we have, am I allowed to say we've got royalty in our midst, Vikki? I'm not quite sure, but anyway, she is the absolute expert. So in terms of creating itineraries that match the time, making the most of every single day, and choosing the best routes, the best places to stay, the restaurants that match your clients, that's what it's all about. So we're going to take you on a little bit of a whistle-stop tour of Edinburgh. I mean, it may not be as big as London, but there's still a heck of a lot to do up there. So bear with us, and we will focus on other areas at later dates. But we really want you to get a really good feel of some of the more obvious experiences, Edinburgh Castle, but Vikki does it in a rather special way, through to some other things that you may not have thought about. But I mean, Edinburgh, just as an overall, is absolutely glorious. It really does combine the new and the old so beautifully. And I think that quote, sorry, I jumped forward from there actually, that quote is absolutely stunning, I think, and sort of brings goosebumps when you think about what you're going to experience there. And it plays host to some incredible events, which we'll come on and talk about, and is obviously the capital city of Scotland and home the crown jewels and so on. So there's history at every turn, and there are quite a lot of turns and quite a lot of hills as well. So you need some good walking shoes when there. But it's a truly magical city. And here's a little bit of a video footage. Over to you, Vikki, if you want to shout out the highlights for us.
Edinburgh Castle, not Edinburgh Castle. Don't know who that is. That's Carlton Hill, looking towards the castle on the right there, looking across the old town, really. And that's the same, that's Carlton Hill. It's a memorial. That's during Edinburgh's Art Festival. living statue, I guess. That's the Sheriff Court, and that is, I don't know where that is. Very nice bridge. That's the part of the university going up the mound in Edinburgh. This is quite exciting. I feel like that's the Balmoral Hotel with Waverley train station below it. I'm terrified I'm going to get one wrong. That's the Witchery, which is right next to the castle. It's one of the best restaurants in Edinburgh, in Scotland probably, actually. It's very historic. That's the Scott Monument. That's Sir Walter Scott at the bottom. That's on the Royal Mile by your tartan tat. That's the Royal Mile.
Perfect. Thank you.
It's a bit quieter at the moment than it usually is.
So what we're going to do with as we go through this is talk about some of the highlights that your clients can enjoy in Edinburgh. And I'm going to pose some questions for Vikki as we go through, but this is obviously for your benefit, and we want you to feel as though you've learned as much as you possibly can. So if there's something that I haven't asked that you would like to know about, please just drop a note in the chat box, and we'll make sure that we answer it. But realistically, Vikki, I mean, this is perfectly achievable, isn't it, in a 3-day itinerary, fitting in this list that we can see here?
It is. There's a lot of traveling involved, but if I think that's just something you have to accept. When you're traveling, you see an awful lot of varied countryside, so you don't have to travel, or some of our guests travel by helicopter and fly over the beautiful scenery. Some prefer to stop, but yes, this itinerary absolutely is feasible. When it says 3 days, you need your traveling days to be on either side of that, so that's an action-packed 3 days, but yeah, totally achievable.
Fantastic.
And a great itinerary.
So we're going to focus in on some of those elements, starting off with, you have to start with Edinburgh Castle. Now, Vikki, this is your clients get a welcome to Edinburgh Castle like nobody else, really, don't they?
Yeah, we do. We're really lucky that we've got very, very good relationships with people all over Scotland. And one of the things that we do with our guests is take them to Edinburgh Castle before it's open to the public. And a lot of people who've never been to it don't quite appreciate at the time how special that is, because you're literally there with just the staff who are sort of getting ready for the tourists for the day. And we come out of breakfast, there are thousands and thousands of people, and then they go, oh right, okay, well it's actually quite nice seeing empty, and you get to see the crown jewels by yourself instead of having a huge queue and jostling and things, which we don't do jostling anymore, of course, but it's totally different. Our cousin is the governor of, so appointed by the Queen, the governor of Edinburgh Castle. He's so he actually lives in the castle. He's got his own house. It's the only house in the castle, so he lives there. So we get him to come out and say hello to our guests, and it's little touches like that that really very few other people can arrange, to be perfectly honest. We also do evening events at the castle, so you can hire it. Like most historic properties, you can hire it for private events, and it's incredibly special having it in the evening, because the lighting is magnificent, and again you've got that real sort of feeling of it's a very formidable castle. It's actually built, for anybody who doesn't know, it's built on a volcano, an extinct volcano, and there have been archaeological digs up, even though it's rock. They've found things dating back many thousands of years, so it's been an important seat of sort of governance for a very long time because of its position on what's called Castle Rock, imaginatively.
Fantastic, thank you. So yes, a very special way of seeing the castle. And then on to the Queen's official residence, Holyrood, which is, I think, just such a beautiful, beautiful building, but lots of history again, Vikki, at every turn on this. Obviously, the links to Mary, Queen of Scots, and so on.
Absolutely, and again, the origins, what you see now is a much later, like most historic properties, probably in the whole of Britain and actually possibly across the world. The properties have changed. They've been built on, adapted. They've been burnt down in fires, and King Robert the Bruce himself was actually responsible for destroying an awful lot of castles in Scotland, one way or another, so that the English couldn't have them. For a castle. So there you go. But the Palace of Holyrood House is the Queen's official residence, as it says, and it's joined to Edinburgh Castle by the Royal Mile, which is not actually a mile long. And that is, if people say, what should I do in Edinburgh for a day? That's one of the things we just say, if they're just looking for advice, walk down the Royal Mile. Really use Google or have a guide, but as Sam said, everywhere you look, there's a story. Halfway down the Royal Mile, you can go into the underground city, which was inhabited, and then they built the Royal Mile actually on top of it. So you can go down to these properties, which were these houses which were abandoned hundreds of years ago, and that's incredible. Everywhere you look has got extraordinary stories of Edinburgh's quite gruesome, of body snatchers or hangings and witches, and we're full of sort of Harry Potter, sort of locations where this was written, and Voldemort's grave is over in Greyfriars Kirkyard, and it's just non-stop. You can just talk the whole time, and there's some great shops on the Royal Mile, really nice cafes. So that in itself is a really nice walk. Get to the bottom and have a look at Holyrood Palace, which is really beautiful, very, very beautiful. And the Queen uses it several times a year. She's here a lot.
Yeah, she seems to have followed in Queen Victoria's footsteps of really loving Scotland, doesn't she? I mean, she spends a lot of time with you.
A huge amount of time up here, yeah.
Which makes it also quite appropriate that since the Royal Yacht was decommissioned, which was a sad day, I think, but she is now very happily moored up in Edinburgh. And I mean, we've certainly arranged some lovely experiences for guests. Vikki, can you just talk through a bit about what people can do on board, the different options?
Yeah, I mean, the private experiences are just private versions, really, of what the public get to see. You get a few more doors opened for you and considerably better service. You get to go in the entrance where the royal family would go in instead of the public entrance. And there's always a butler with champagne and a piper, and it's a very, very special feeling because the vessel is very personal. It's very personalized by the royal family. They didn't make a huge fuss over it. It is very elegant and very beautiful, but it's not grand. It's really lovely, and they really felt at home and very safe there. And I think that's reflected in the boat. There is a very beautiful state dining room where, again, we hold private events, and that's wonderful. And I don't know if you know that the Royal Yacht, they built a floating hotel, which is very similar in looks. It's their sister ship nearby called Fingal. And Fingal was the Northern Lighthouse Board maintenance vessel. So it went around all the lighthouses, which were built by the Stevenson family, which is same as Robert Louis Stevenson, same family. And it's a beautiful, so you can actually, and it's particularly nice if you're having an event on Britannia to stay on Fingal. So you're in these incredibly beautiful cabins, which actually Princess Anne is the patron of the Northern Lighthouse Board and has spent many nights on Fingal. So again, it's lots of stories within stories, and so that's lovely. Is staying in a boat and having an event on Britannia and then staying in Fingal. That's a lovely thing to do.
Perfect. Oh, wonderful. Yeah, she is rather lovely. Now, being with the position of Edinburgh, I think you sort of have to go out on out on the water, don't you? What are the what's the best ways of seeing it?
You can actually see my house from this picture. I live just over there. You can. So this is where the cruise ships come in. There are a few cruise ship locations. One is South Queensferry, which is where this photograph is taken. And actually, this is also very near Hopetoun House, which is a really magnificent stately home to visit with beautiful gardens and grounds right on the edge of the estuary. You can get a variety of boats. There are boats which go out, which are, they're like sort of floating buses, or we can, we actually have access to super yachts for people who've got the time to organize it and the money to pay for it. There are lots of, and then there's kind of anything in between. You can head out. There's an island called Inchcombe Island, and that's got a very ancient monastery. There's under the bridge, in fact, I don't know if you can see it from here, you can't quite see it on this picture. There's a really extraordinary island which is full of these weird buildings. It was a sort of a gun emplacement during the war when the Germans were trying to blow the bridge up. So there's lots, and you see sort of seals and puffins and dolphins and great wildlife. So there's lots to see, sort of around and about.
Yeah, absolutely beautiful. And there's something about, I mean, we do a lot of river tours and water-based experiences down here, because I just think the perspective of looking at places from the water is so different from when you're on land. So it's wonderful getting that whole image, which is just glorious. So now going on to. We're getting a bit more green fingered now, and I mean your botanic gardens are world famous, aren't they? I mean, even I'm not a gardener, but even I'm aware of the significance of your Royal Botanic Gardens. What else? What specifically are the highlights, do you think, of clients going here?
Actually, you've hit the most beautiful building. When you're inside that building, it's really it's got the most amazing atmosphere inside it. It's a very beautiful botanic gardens. It's quite small and, well, compact rather than small, and it's very central and right in the city centre. At winter in the wintertime they do a winter wonder. See, people don't really travel to other countries in the winter, which is a real shame. Nobody comes to Scotland for the weather anyway. So actually, why not come out of season where we've got these incredible colours or just amazing sort of crisp, fresh air. But in the winter, this turns into a winter wonderland. So all the trees are uplit in fantastical colours, and there are beautiful sounds and things like that. There are a number of properties within the gardens, including one beautiful little cottage where, again, you can have a private lunch with music, and you can sort of decorate it appropriately, bring in really great caterers, or have a whiskey tasting. With gardens, it's one of those things that we quite often say to our guests when they've come from overseas. It's very tempting for us to give them a really action-packed holiday, and we want them to see everything and have a really great time. But actually, people are on holiday. Even if they're here for work, they're having some kind of break, and they've also traveled, so we want them to relax. And going to the gardens is one of the things that we say, look, why don't you just get a taxi down there and have a coffee and a walkabout. And I think it's a really important part of the whole kind of growing popularity of well-being. And you're traveling people travel for many different reasons, and actually to really get in touch with this and the history that's behind the people who collected these plants, and it's probably the same in all countries, is extraordinary. Some real pioneers who brought this collection together over the centuries. It's amazing.
Yeah, absolutely, absolutely. Yeah, it's lovely, the idea of just pootling down there to have a coffee. It's just wonderful. But yes, and now we obviously have to talk about Charlie and whiskey. There is something, I can't remember the number of whiskey distilleries there are in Scotland. 120?
130, I think.
130. Well, obviously your clients don't need to visit all 130, because chances are they'll know quite a bit after the first few. But there are some real specials, and some real specials that are off the beaten track, aren't there? Which is a rather lovely way to do it. And Charlie certainly knows everybody that is worth seeing, does he not?
Absolutely. And actually, I've just had lunch with him. He's very well, passes on his very best wishes.
Oh, that's lovely. Thank you.
It's funny because most people have a favorite whiskey or have heard of a distillery. Most people have heard of, like, Maclean being a particularly famous one, or Oban is quite famous. So they've got something in their minds that they want to see. Some people want to see a distillery just because it's a box that needs to be ticked. You go to Scotland, you want to see a distillery, taste the whiskey. So people have very different expectations. So, you know, seeing one of the bigger distilleries is always good, but actually what we've got cropping up increasingly is really characterful. They're a bit sort of moonshiny, little tiny micro distilleries where they also make very small batch gins, and the stills are very, very small. I mean, they're about 1 meter high. They're really little and dinky. And with these ones, what we can do is do sort of a distillery day, and really get people to sort of be very interactive, and if it's gin, you can choose your own botanicals, and so your gin is completely unique, and then we can help with the labeling. There's a legal side to what has to go onto a label, and then you can sort of invent the rest and be creative, and that kind of thing is great fun. Sometimes we do, particularly with the slightly more corporate male-orientated groups, we'll do a whiskey tour or a distillery tour, and then a whiskey tasting with maybe a cigar tasting afterwards. We do chocolate whiskey pairings. There are lots of different types of pairings that we can do. And we can do this in lots of different locations. Because obviously distilleries are all over Scotland and commercial scale, and so some people, you know, if people are serious collectors or buyers or investors, they don't really want to see the quirky new ones. They want to see the big guns where the whiskey is going to be expensive and valuable, and they're going to make a profit on it. So as I say, people have got different expectations and different requirements, but with Charlie's help, we're able to pretty much unlock any door in Scotland.
Fantastic. And actually, on that note, my other half is involved, as Vikki, you know this, in a whiskey distillery, in a new distillery, and they launched their first whiskey 3 weeks ago, which was very exciting. But what was amazing, and they sold out within the first weekend, the first batch, obviously. And then they auctioned the first 10 bottles and through the whiskey auction site. And they were hoping, they nominated 5 charities, and they were hoping maybe that, you know, each charity would get maybe $5,000 or something like that. So they were saying 20 or 30 grand. The first bottle broke all the world records and sold for £41,000. So in total, they made over £90,000. So the charities, you can imagine, are delighted.
We're all talking about it, I can tell you. There's a lot of wow, that's amazing.
So yes, Maclean has hit the headlines.
Maclean.
Very, very exciting. So So yes, so but as you said, I mean, Charlie really is so wonderful because he just loves sharing his passion in the way that suits the clients, doesn't he?
Absolutely, he's a real sort of charming character. He's very gregarious, and he's very warm, and when he does, one of the things that's really, it's interesting to watch guests who are having a whiskey tasting, because quite often they're afraid to speak because they might look stupid, they might ask a stupid question and whatever. But Charlie's great because he puts everybody at their ease, and you know, there's no such thing as a right or wrong answer. He will tell you that if you want to put Pepsi in your Coke, in your whiskey, you crack on. If you think that's what tastes nice, you do that. You know, he's very relaxed about it, which is lovely, and people really enjoy his company. He's good fun.
Yeah, he's lovely. And if for any of you weren't able to join us in the week that that Charlie was with us, when Lisa sends the follow-up material, she'll send you a link to the recording so that you can listen, and no disrespect, Vikki, but you can listen to the man himself talking about his love of whiskey.
The man himself.
Yeah, because it was wonderful. Now, just three of the many events, but they are three huge events. So, Vikki, can you just give us the sort of highlights of the three, please?
They are all absolutely extraordinary. The Edinburgh Fringe Festival has been going for, I can't quite remember, it's about 70 odd years, but it's the world's biggest arts festival, and it is just massive. The directory that comes out with all the shows that you can go and see is like a phone book. It's huge. Obviously attracts people from all over the world, and then the Fringe is really sort of the side, you know, this picture is looking up the Royal Mile at the castle. And the Royal Mile is just packed with people, you know, musicians, jugglers, fire eaters. You just walk up and down, and I mean, you don't really even need to necessarily go to any shows, but obviously the shows are, there's emerging comedians, there are really famous comedians. You know, there really is something for everybody. There's every genre that you could imagine. There's some really, really terrible stuff, there's some kids stuff. Most of it's really good. It's very, very enjoyable. It's fab. And then I'm going to jump down to the military to 2, because that's kind of at the same time as the festival, and that blue square in the middle of the screen is the hospitality seating area. So you walk under that, and it's like a football stadium in what's called the Esplanade, which is, as you walk up to the castle, it's a huge open space. So they build up the seating, so it is like a football stadium. It's the only way I can describe it. And this is, so the royal box is in this blue bit, and that looks straight into the gate of Edinburgh Castle, where all of the performers come out. And the performers are made up of military regiments from around the world, and they come and they do it's very formal, very correct. A tattoo obviously being sort of the beating of a drum. They come out and they do routines, but actually there's usually a theme to the tattoo, and they inject an enormous amount of humor and fun into what they do. And you'd be really surprised at how people doing something as dry as a regimental sort of parade can actually really make you laugh. And there was one where, I can't remember what, they were from Jordan or somewhere, and they suddenly started sort of doing these big, you know, sort of major general this, and started doing sort of ballet dancing, and it was just, you know, it was part of their little sort of wordless comedy routine, and it was visually and audibly, it's really spectacular. And the castle is used as a backdrop, so there's images and colors and lights being flashed and projected, and then a fireworks display at the end, and beautiful singing, and it's a mind-blowing experience.
And
And
that's
then
the end of
Hogmanay is
August.
the Scottish word for New Year. Sorry. It's the end of August. It's 3 weeks. It's on every single night for 3 weeks. Finishes at the end of August. Obviously, we didn't have it this year. So Edinburgh's been very, very quiet. Normally August in Edinburgh, I mean, there's hundreds and hundreds and hundreds of thousands of people who aren't normally here, and it's just bedlam. And now it's quite weird. Same that we're all going through. But yeah, the last 3 weeks of August, and there are great hospitality packages. You can have dinner in Edinburgh Castle and then come through what's called the Portcullis Gate, which is the main entrance into Edinburgh, and then take your seating in the enclosure here, the blue enclosure. So you get to have champagne with the director of the tattoo, who's, I can't remember who it is at the moment. It's some very senior figure in the army, and he's in charge of the tattoo. And yeah, so you're sort of rubbing shoulders with all the people in the hospitality boxes who are the great and good, and sometimes the royals. And it's an amazing experience. Never get tired of it. And then
Hogmanay, because you do celebrate New Year
Hogmanay
like no one else.
Do you know, when I was a child, Christmas wasn't a day off. People worked a half day on Christmas Day when I was a child in Scotland. It wasn't really a thing.
Wow.
Christmas, it's just kind of unbelievable to think about that. Think about that now. People worked on Christmas Day. It's just a thing. Hogmanay was the thing in Scotland. Always has been. And I think, we're slightly equalizing now, and Christmas is obviously probably bigger than Hogmanay, but it is really a chance for Christmas is a real family event, and Hogmanay is a real friends event. So this is where there's far too much whiskey drunk, and then there's some really strange traditions in Scotland around Hogmanay. First footing, where you go and you rub black soot from coal fires onto people's faces and things like that. It's all traditional. It's all very weird. But yeah, in Edinburgh, you have to buy a ticket now. You used to be able to just turn up, but it became such a big event that it's all ticketed now. So there's a lot of security, which obviously we all require. They've got great bands performing. The weather sometimes is nice and sometimes isn't, and nobody seems to really care. I think the crush of bodies makes everybody keep warm, but it's just the most extraordinary atmosphere that you can imagine. And once the bells go at midnight, people just walk around just kissing each other. It's very friendly. It's not very COVID friendly, but we might not be doing that this year, goodness knows. But yeah, people just walk up to total strangers, and there's this extraordinary atmosphere of conviviality, like no other that you'd ever experience anywhere. It's weird, really, and really lovely.
That's wonderful. I really must do it one year, because my birthday is New Year's Day. So if that's not a way to celebrate my birthday, I don't know what is. So one of these days. Now, I think accommodation is one of the real hidden wonders, actually, because there are the obvious, the Balmoral is beautiful. The Kimpton that we were talking about earlier is absolutely stunning. But it's your access, Vikki, isn't it, to some of the really, really old estates and so on, that means that you don't just have to stay in a hotel when they come and visit you.
Yeah, that's absolutely right. And we're really lucky. We're going through this kind of this wave where it's become the savior of the stately home, really, where there just isn't. Scotland doesn't have a huge amount of money. We're quite a poor country, but we've got these incredible properties that can't afford to run themselves. And this boom of exclusive use property has saved many buildings from rack and ruin. This particular photograph, that's Gordon, who's my favourite butler, who's just gone to work for a family in London, a very, very, very famous family in London. But he has worked for years for the royal family, so he's got some great stories. And that property is a beautiful castle in the Highlands, and you know, with chef and staff, and it's like having you know, that particular one is 10 bedrooms. It's like having a little 5-star hotel, just, you know, with no other guests, that you can completely relax in. It's great for groups who require discretion and security, because these things are so easily managed. It's great for groups who've got dietary requirements. So quite often our Chinese groups can be a little bit sort of particular, because their Western diet doesn't necessarily agree with them if they're eating a lot of sort of heavy, stodgy, meaty meals. They don't have to, but they think that's what we're going to eat. So they want their own kind of cuisine. So we can pre-arrange all the catering. We can pre-order all the wines, so that everything is costed and under control. It's controlled by the clients. This is what they want, and we can make it happen, but much more easily than we can in a hotel. And obviously we've got some amazing hotels, and a lot of guests particularly want to see Gleneagles because it's quite iconic and it is beautiful, and it's just had a big refurb. We've got, you know, we do have people with varying budgets. They're not all helicopters and castles. Some of them are much more modest, and we can cater to that as well. It's not difficult, but it's the exclusive use properties that give us the greatest scope to really give our clients a fabulous experience, just because you have freer reign and you don't have other people to worry about. And I think, you know, now with the sort of restrictions that we're in with bubbles and social distancing, you know, that staying in these properties is going to be a far easier proposition for people, a far more attractive proposition, I think, because again, we can really control these environments. We can control the staff, make sure that everybody's tested and everything is, which we would do wherever we go, but it's just, you know, it's going to be so much more, I think, reassuring in these properties. And they are incredibly historic, incredibly, so beautiful, and also all the mod cons, you know, what you would expect nowadays. We don't really sort of have too many which are, you know, still lagging in the 80s, which was a problem for a while, but everybody's, you know, they've really done great jobs on their properties, and these properties are absolutely magnificent.
Yeah. Fantastic. Oh, thank you so much, Vikki. That has just been that's just been wonderful, and I hope you've enjoyed your whistle stop tour. I've tried to ask the questions that I was hoping that you want the answers to. Please do shout quickly if there's anything that you would like Vikki to answer. But hopefully we've given you a good feel of some of the best things to do. But it will all be tailored and bespoke and made incredibly special for your clients. And it's, you know, it is quite easily done. Just either a short plane ride, if they're not helicopter people, a short plane ride from London, or actually one of my favorites is to get the train up, because the views up that East Coast line are absolutely amazing. So I think the train is very relaxing and rather lovely. So thank you for joining us for this. This Friday, Humphreys TV is going to come from Salisbury. We're trying not to remember it as the place of the Russian poisonings. We're trying to remember it as the beautiful, quite incredible historic city that it is. And I had a wonderful weekend down there. So we took lots of footage and met up with some of our favourite partners. We've even got some Home Guard representatives in the video. So that's Friday, and then we have another treat with Lord Maurice Fermoy next Wednesday, where we're going to one of the Queen's private estates of Sandringham up in Norfolk, where there are some glorious opportunities to do some really special experiences. And it's a part of the country that we haven't explored a huge amount with you so far. So sort of heading northeast a bit, you'll see very different countryside, but more importantly, all of Morris's fabulous royal stories from his time at Sandringham. So we really look forward to seeing you next week. Thank you so much for joining us. Please do let us know if you've got any questions whatsoever. And Lisa will, as I say, will also send you the link to the fabulous tea and training that we did with Charlie Maclean and talked all things whiskey for about half an hour, which was great. So thanks so much, and we'll see you next week. Bye-bye.